Hello, welcome to the Oikos Family Podcast. I'm Sonja Wood, and thank you for joining me. In the previous podcast, I spoke to you about bread and bread making. So today what I wanted to do was just to share with you that we have taken this bread making a little further than just for the sake of making bread only. I tell you what we do now because we know the value that we can get from good nutrition when we make our own things instead of buying them. And we also know the value of the lessons learned along the way. I wanted to share something with you now. You would have noticed if you watching this podcast rather than just listening to it that there was a photograph of a plate of crisps, which you might call crackers or snacks. I'm not sure what you'll call them, but we just call them crisps. And what we have found with these crisps is they have really, really been a fantastic, staple thing to have in the pantry. And before we started making these crisps, we used to buy, boxes of crackers to have with cheese and a savory related snack. And then we stopped buying those boxes of crackers and we started making our own when we discovered the value of the nutrition of making things ourselves with the flour that we have, milled and made ourselves. I spoke about that in the previous podcast. So about the crackers, this is what I want to tell you, that a box of savory snacks that you might purchase at your grocery store is going to be quite a dangerous thing for you to give your little children. And I'll tell you why, because if you look on the side of the box and you just see the number of chemicals, basically I spoke about how many chemicals there are in a packet of bought bread. Well, you can increase that when it comes to buying crackers, savory crackers. Increase the amount of preservatives and stabilizers, which is a preservative, I suppose. I'm not going to go into all the chemicals and preservatives because I'm not a scientist, so I don't know all their names, and I know that some chemicals are not actually harmful and so on and so forth. But what I also know is that if we take something that has been God-given in the form of a grain and we mill it and we keep it in its most natural form that we possibly can, and we turn that into an edible product for our children, I believe that that is a safe and good way to go. I think that when we're buying processed foods, it is unsafe. And we don't necessarily know the harm that we can actually be doing to ourselves, to our organs, to our own bodies and our children. And so that's why I wanted to talk to you about our crackers. Let me tell you how simple this is. We put flour, salt, and oil in a bowl, and we mix it till it sort of gets to a dryish consistency so we can roll it, a bit like a pastry. And then we roll it out as thin as we possibly can, and then we take a cutter. It can be the top of a glass. If you're have little children in the kitchen, you might want to just use the top of a plastic cup. Anything that works for you to make a little circle cutter. We make our crisps always round. Now, you could also roll it out and just cut it into squares. Or however you want to cut the shapes. You could cut all kinds of different shapes if you like. But what we do is we roll out this pastry. It's not actually pastry. It is flour, salt, and oil. Okay? So, and a little bit of moisture, water, just to get the consistency that you want. You roll out this very thin as you can, and then you have your children cut all little shapes out. You can actually, some people have a variety of different cutters, gingerbread shapes and stars and anything, cookie cutters, I think you call them. So before you roll out the dough, make sure that your surface is very, very well floured because it's going to stick otherwise. And so don't be nervous of having too much flour, lots of flour on the surface, especially if the children are helping so they don't get frustrated with the dough sticking to the countertop, all right? Once you've done that, or even before you do that, I tend to do it after, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Once you've rolled it out and cut it out, I then sprinkle sesame seeds or poppy seeds or coarse salt, or if you want to make little salty crackers, you can choose what you want to sprinkle on the top of this dough. And then you can roll it again because it sort of pushes whatever you sprinkled on the top into the dough. So it makes it a little bit thinner, makes the cracker a little bit thinner, and it also embeds whatever it is that you're sprinkling on top into the dough. You could also decide you're going to put a handful of herbs into the dough before you roll it out. I tend to do it afterwards because I like it when the sesame seeds are on the top of the crackers, so that when they go into the oven for 5 or 7 or 10 minutes, again depending on your oven, we put our oven on very hot and we pop these little crackers in, and they cook very quickly, 10 minutes or so less. And because I've put the sesame seeds on the top after we've rolled it out, they get that roasted sesame seed flavor. Now, I'm sure you're going to agree that if you eat a cracker that has been made in this way, that's got roasted sesame flavor on the top, or poppy seeds, or whatever flavors it is you want to put, you can put paprika, you can put cayenne pepper, you can make chili crackers if you want. Get some proper dried chilies and sprinkle those on the top or into the dough, and you can have chili flavored crackers. I'm sure you've already got it by now that there's the options are just so many, and you can have a huge variety of homemade crackers instead of buying these boxed bought crackers that are full of preservatives. They really are. I'm going to ask you to look at the side of the box and just see how much is in the ingredients of that content of that box. Please have a look. Please be aware. If this podcast today is just to help you look at the box and start being more conscious of what you're buying, which I hope will lead you to being even more conscious of what you're putting into your children's bodies, because at the end of the day, you want to put goodness and wholesomeness and health and into your children's body that you know is going to be good for them. It's not going to actually cause them to have some kind of awful illness or disease or something that makes them not well. I know you as a parent listening to this podcast want the very best for your children. And so I'm going to encourage you to make crackers, because I believe that will be a fun project for the whole family. I also believe that if you can get it into your routine at home, even if it's going to take an evening to do it, one evening that's what you're going to do, or one Saturday afternoon that's what you're going to do, make crackers. Let me tell you, we make a huge batch at once. Yes, it takes time. But then we put it into a sealed container, and it lasts for ages. They don't go off quickly. They don't go stale. They stay nice and crispy. And there you have a snack on the ready where you can grab a couple of crackers for your children, and you know you're giving them goodness. You can put something onto the cracker if you so desire. To add even, more, whatever toppings you want, and add more goodness. We make cream cheese, and we put some cream cheese on that cracker, and that is homemade cream cheese. And it's so easy to make. I think I'll have to tell you about that in another podcast. All right. So for this podcast, it was all about the crackers. I hope you're encouraged, and I hope you and your family will start making your own crackers and stop buying them, and that you will enjoy the process of making them, and that you'll enjoy the wonderful flavors that you can create yourself in your own kitchen for your family. Thank you for listening or watching or both, and I look forward to seeing you or speaking to you again in the next podcast. Bye for now.